If you ask most people where this black liquid comes from, they'll confidently tell you it's liquefied dinosaur remains. It seems logical, dinosaurs, fossils, fossil fuels, but the reality is far stranger. Not one drop of the oil in your tank owes its origin to dinosaurs, which appeared long after petroleum deposits formed. The real source is far more surprising and reveals one of the most successful marketing myths in history. The billion-dollar marketing deception. This deception has a name, a face, and a corporate boardroom where it was born. Walk into any elementary school classroom, and you'll find picture books showing cartoon dinosaurs standing next to oil derricks with captions explaining how these ancient reptiles became the gasoline in our cars. Turn on the Discovery Channel and watch documentaries that casually mention dinosaur oil while showing computer animations of T-Rex skeletons dissolving into black crude. Visit gas stations across America and notice the dinosaur mascots grinning from corporate logos, reinforcing the connection between prehistoric giants and petroleum products. But this isn't some innocent misconception that evolved naturally over time. The dinosaur oil myth represents one of the most successful corporate propaganda campaigns in modern history, a deliberate deception that rewrote scientific understanding in the public mind and continues to influence how billions of people think about energy. What makes this particularly shocking is that unlike folklore or urban legends that develop organically through generations of storytelling, this myth has a precise birth date and a corporate architect who orchestrated its global spread. The mastermind behind this deception was the Sinclair Oil Corporation, founded in 1916 by Harry Sinclair. In the early 1930s, Sinclair's marketing department faced a challenge that many oil companies struggled with: how to make petroleum products memorable and appealing to average consumers who had little understanding of geology or chemistry. The solution they devised would prove so effective that it would override decades of scientific education and embed itself permanently in popular consciousness. Sinclair's marketing team made a calculated decision to link their brand with dinosaurs, not because of any scientific accuracy, but because dinosaurs captured the public imagination in a way that microscopic marine organisms never could. The campaign launched with Sinclair's adoption of a green brontosaurus as their corporate mascot in 1930, which they trademarked in 1932, complete with a slogan that positioned their oil as coming from these magnificent prehistoric creatures. This wasn't accidental imagery or a casual association. It was a meticulously planned strategy to create a simple, memorable story that would stick in consumers' minds. The genius of this marketing approach lay in its exploitation of a linguistic coincidence that even scientists had inadvertently created. The term fossil fuels already existed in scientific literature, referring to any fuel derived from ancient organic matter. In fact, fossil in fossil fuel simply means dug up in Latin, not prehistoric reptiles. But Sinclair's marketers recognized that most people didn't understand this technical definition. They simply associated the word with dinosaur bones they'd seen in museums. By connecting these dots for consumers, Sinclair created a narrative that felt logical and scientific while being completely false. What transformed this single company's marketing campaign into a global myth was its amplification through two massive cultural phenomena. The first was the 1933 to 1934 Century of Progress World's Fair in Chicago, where Sinclair constructed an elaborate dinosaur exhibit that drew millions of visitors from around the world. Families walked through detailed dinosaur dioramas, while Sinclair representatives explained how these creatures had transformed into the oil that powered modern civilization. The second amplifying event came at the 1964-1965 New York World's Fair, where Sinclair outdid their previous effort with an even more sophisticated dinosaur display featuring advanced animatronics and theatrical presentations called Dinoland. By this point, the association between dinosaurs and oil had become so entrenched that other companies began adopting similar imagery, creating a feedback loop that reinforced the myth across the entire petroleum industry. The campaign's success exceeded even Sinclair's wildest expectations. Within decades, the dinosaur oil connection had infiltrated educational materials, children's books, television programs, and casual conversation. Teachers who had learned the myth as children passed it on to new generations of students. Science textbooks began including simplified explanations that reinforced the misconception rather than correcting it. Popular media embraced the narrative because it provided an easy way to explain complex geological processes to general audiences. What makes this deception particularly insidious is how it exploited people's natural tendency to accept information that comes from authoritative sources. When a major corporation with oil expertise promoted the dinosaur connection, and when this message appeared at prestigious international exhibitions alongside legitimate scientific displays, most people had no reason to question its accuracy. The myth gained credibility through repetition and institutional endorsement rather than scientific evidence. The dinosaur imagery became so powerful that it transcended Sinclair's original marketing purposes and embedded itself in the broader cultural understanding of energy and geology. Gas stations across the country adopted dinosaur mascots and promotional materials. Educational publishers included dinosaur oil connections in science curricula. Even scientists found themselves having to work against this entrenched misconception when teaching about petroleum formation. By the 1970s, the myth had achieved something unprecedented in marketing history. It had completely overwritten scientific fact in public consciousness. Polls conducted during this period showed that an overwhelming majority of Americans believed oil came from dinosaurs, despite the fact that no geology textbook or scientific paper had ever supported this claim. The marketing campaign had become more influential than actual scientific education. Today, nearly a century after Sinclair launched their dinosaur campaign, the myth continues to influence how people think about energy, despite overwhelming scientific evidence to the contrary. Modern oil companies have largely moved away from dinosaur imagery, but the association remains so strong that correcting it requires active effort. Science educators report that debunking the dinosaur oil myth is one of their most challenging tasks because students arrive in classrooms with decades of cultural reinforcement supporting the misconception. The persistence of this myth demonstrates how a single corporation's marketing strategy can have consequences that extend far beyond their original commercial goals. When companies shape public understanding of scientific concepts for profit rather than accuracy, they create distortions that can last for generations.